Good morning. Welcome to NNPA's Black Press USA live stream live. I am Dr. Nsenga Burton, and I am just happy, tickled pink, just pearly glorious, just happy to be sitting here talking to Maisha Land about this hashtag stroll to the polls movement. Hi, Maisha, how are you?
Hello, Nsenga. How are you doing? Great.
Great. Thank you for joining us today. We are really excited because this stroll to the polls movement has just kind of exploded and you are the creative force behind it. So let's get to talking. Let's talk about this. So tell me, how did it all start, Maisha?
So, to be honest with you, it was quite organic, and it's a surprise that all of this has blown up like it has. So, when Senator Kamala Harris was nominated for the vice presidential candidate nominee for the Democratic Party, I was so super excited for a number of reasons. But I wanted to celebrate that. So, for those who are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, and some of who don't know, I love to stroll. And strolling, for those who are watching, is a way that we demonstrate unison and movement. And we typically do it during parties or out on the yard or whatever to demonstrate that we're, in solidarity. We're moving together. We're doing, steps together. And so I teach a class called Stroll Through Fitness to the members of the sorority on Sundays through Facebook. And we've got about 3,000 followers. So the Sunday class, after the announcement, I decided to do a stroll to celebrate the vice presidential nominee, which is, Senator Harris. And I researched it and I said, I wonder what song she likes. And in my research, I found out that when she was running for president, she used the song by Lizzo, Like a Girl. And in the first verse says, woke up feeling like I just might run for president. So I took the song, and I made a stroll to it, and the members of the sorority learned the stroll. So about maybe a few days later, I was in a Facebook group for the Divine Nine, and someone said, we should do a unity stroll. So a unity stroll is when all the different fraternities and sororities come together and you all do the same dance moves as you go around and, and progress through the campus or through a party or whatever. Because everyone has their own signature moves and their own signature signs and their own signature calls. Right? You come together and you decide what the moves are going to be, which is sometimes a feat in itself, right? Because everybody, we're pretty and, we're pretty. And then the deltas are very strong when they're, and the zetas have their own style and the sigma gamma rhos have their own style. So I said, okay, who would like to participate? If you're in the Atlanta area, hit me up.
Okay.
Let's unity stroll. So I got a lot of reach back, but all the follow-up came from females, from women of the various sororities. And so I created a group and I said, okay, I own a dance studio here in Atlanta, Gems of Georgia Dance Studio. So we had a space to practice. And I said, listen, I've already made up a stroll. Mm-hmm. This would just be a situation of you all learning it. And then we could kind of tailor it to have your signature moves in it.
Okay.
And that's how it came about. And so I am also a member, and people are like, how did you get all these Greeks together? So most of the people who responded on the Facebook did not come back. They didn't. So I am a member of the Order of the Eastern Star, which is the oldest fraternity in the world, and one of the oldest fraternity for men and women in the world. And so, of course, you have all these different members of the organization who are members of fraternity to sorority. So I reached out to an Eastern Star sister, Maisha, who was a Zeta. And I reached out to some Eastern Star sisters who were Sigma Gamma Rhos. And then I had a friend of mine who was a Delta. And of course, I'm already an AKA. So we already had our four. And it was only going to be like 8 of us.
Okay.
It ended up being 20 of us because people were so made up. What are you doing? Oh, we want to do that. And so, of course, we had to organize what we were going to wear. So we started this about August 30th.
Okay.
We filmed until October the 5th.
Now, how did you decide to film? I mean, I know that your cinematographer is a Kappa. Like, was he involved from the beginning or did you hire him? Like, how did that work?
He was not. Yeah, he was not. So I had received several bids for the videography of the video. And so I, received bids from an Alpha from Kennesaw State and, different people. And so, of course, you have to just charge for the videography, but you also have to charge for the editing, right? And people don't,
Yes.
you know, people think nowadays that you can just do everything. Well, you know, I'm old and I don't want to be bothered. So I just want to be in front of the camera and have somebody put together and be like magic. So one of the Deltas who was participating says, I know this guy. We had already shot I had done shopping, meaning that I had looked for the scenes. We had 9 scenes selected, and then we gave them to the sororities and said, these are the walls that we have throughout Atlanta that represent empowerment, female empowerment, Black female empowerment. You guys choose your walls. So the ladies chose the walls. And I was like, okay, so if anyone knows of anyone, I've got a couple of bids. You know, let me know if you know of anyone who might be interested in the project. And so I had an opportunity to talk to Mario about 4 days or 5 days before the project.
Okay.
I was excited. So we hired Mario to do the shot. I sent him I had already had a flip snack together of where the locations were going to be and everything. And he was like, I think this is amazing. And his bid was amazing.
Come through, Mario Page. Yes.
Right. The most responsive and responsible bidder, right?
Yes.
Responsive bidder. And so we talked for 3 days, and then we filmed on Sunday, and everybody was there. And that is how Mario got involved. And it was so great to have a member of the Divine Nine participate, particularly in him being willing to do so, you know, in such a short notice.
Oh, fantastic. So can you talk to me about the murals? Because murals are a big deal in Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, and public art and street art are really part of, I think, the signature of Atlanta, which differentiates Atlanta from other major cities. Can you talk a little bit about that and then talk about how you selected the 9 locations or murals that you chose to stand in front of? Because there are like lots that you could have chosen.
Absolutely. So the first goal with the filming and the video is always to be respectful of the elected officials and the decisions that they make for our city. And so Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, you know, has done a fantastic job of leading us during COVID. And the first thought that we had is to find locations that would allow us to congregate, but still be in a social distance situation. And also, much love to our mayor, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and a member of the Divine Nine. But we want to make sure, first of all, that our locations allowed us to film in a way that would be respectful to the laws of the city of Atlanta, first of all, and second of all, to make sure that we remain healthy. Yes. So the first search was, okay, let's find a large location that over 20 women could be in and be socially distanced, and the camera still catch it and it still be fly. Okay, first thing is a part of the bid. Do you have a drone? Because this is muy importante. I'm going to be able to look up with my pinky and see a camera. So one of the first murals that we actually looked at was a mural on Martin Luther King of and I can't remember her name, Ruby Harris, who was a member of SICK. And so we looked at that location because it was a symbol of empowerment and women being empowered to vote. Then the next location I took a look at was locations in Hateville, because they have a lot of murals in Hateville to make sure, and they had a lot of colors because we wanted to be inclusive of the colors of the sororities. Then we stopped and we took a look at Hey Brown Girl, You're Beautiful on Peter Street. Many of these murals are in Castleberry, in the Castleberry communities, in the West End communities.
And these are historically Black neighborhoods or communities, right? These are for people who are not from Atlanta. Yes.
Correct. Absolutely. So at that point in time, we also looked, there was a wall that I didn't know existed, which had a picture of a 2 Chainz son with his fist up, you know, like strength, right? So we looked at that location because in the song, Lizzo says, if you cry like a girl, fight like a girl, do your thing for the whole wide world. So we wanted to make sure that our visions included things that would encompass the personality of the sororities, as well as encompass the lyrics of the song, and the message of being engaged to vote. So women of Zeta Phi Beta shopped their own, and they gave several. And some of those locations actually ended up being used by other sororities. So the scene that Delta Sigma Theta was in front of, where there are 3 women, one with their eyes covered with the American flag, one with her mouth covered with the American flag, one with her head covered with the American flag, was actually located by a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority. The location that the Sigma Gamma Rhos were in front of are actually located in the West End, and it's called Her Story. And it was actually painted by Ashley. Her mural cutting was just this week. And it has all of these fantastic women in the West End area who have made impacts. Women like Lottie Watkins, who started Willie Watkins, the Watkins Funeral Home in the West End. Women like Cleta Winslow, who currently sit as elected officials. Women like Woody Persons, who I attended Gate City Heritage School and took my first dance class in. She had the first charter school in Chicago, but then she moved to the West End and opened up a private school for Black children. You have women like Ariana Sykes, who's a Georgia State alumni and one of my schoolmates and one of my workmates, who was a huge advocate of rights and voting rights, who passed in her 20s from illness. And you have all these fantastic women. The wall happened to be blue and gold. So I said, that's it. That's the Sigma Gamma wall. So that's where they stroll. For Alpha Kappa Alpha, we chose the wall in Auburn Avenue, which is another historically Black community. And we chose to do our strolling in front of the wall for Evelyn Lowry, which is a hero wall, just like the hero wall. It's right around the corner from John Lewis. Evelyn Lowry was in charge of the Women's Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the late wife of Joseph Lowry, and was an advocate of the rights and empowerment of women and children. So we chose to do that in front of our very own sorority wall, or sorority members wall, with the ladies of Zeta Phi Beta. And just for a record, Nsenga, all of these murals were done by Black women.
Fantastic.
Under celebrated. Mirage did a mural, the one that you see with the lady with the fist. That is actually her mother.
Oh, wow.
That's her mom, and she is on Moreland Avenue. And on the side of the wall, it says, "You are here," and then it marks through it, says, "We are here." And it's got a hand very similar to mine with pink nails and a Black fist. But Living Walls is a part of these projects. The wall for Her Story was actually paid for by a African-American nonprofit that is owned and ran by a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, Deborah Scott. Okay. So you have African-American women paying for these African-American women to put up murals. So I'm going to say this. Atlanta is a unique city where not just African Americans are empowered in Nsenga, African American women are empowered.
Yes, yes.
And so I think I'm so glad you brought that up, because this is an opportunity. They set a landscape for us to communicate that made what our message was so much more powerful.
Yes.
Yes. It's so much more powerful. And so, as you can see, I posted a picture today on my Facebook where there's an African-American woman crying, and it says, "I'll never get home." That was filmed on Boulevard. Or that shot was taken on Boulevard, because there's a longer version of the stroll video that's coming out hopefully this week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you see that, it has the women of the 4 sororities standing on the wall, and it says, "I'll never get home." And so we use that message to say, not only do you need to stroll to the polls, but you need to stay there, stay in line. Don't you move until you have cast your ballot. We don't care how you get there, just get there if you can. If you can't get there, make sure you send your absentee ballot in by mail. If you can drop your absentee ballot off in a state certified mailbox or drop box, and I want to say state certified, because we know we have people who are creating their own drop boxes for whatever purposes those will be. Make sure you drop your ballot in a certified, state certified mailbox or drop box. Even if you have to ride to the poll, walk to the poll, stroll to the poll, hop to the poll, have somebody push you in your wheelchair to the poll, you get there and you stay there until your ballot is cast. Your voting is a right. Your vote is a right. And people say their vote doesn't matter, but if your vote didn't matter, so many people wouldn't be working so hard to keep you from casting it.
Right, right. And what I love about the stroll to the polls movement, because it is becoming a movement. Like I think it's more from like this great idea, and it was, just I wouldn't say just, but members of the sororities and the fraternities, the Divine Nine, was very excited about Kamala Harris being nominated and making history. And we know she stands at the shoulders of lots of other people who are members of these organizations. And at any rate, one of the things that I love about this whole movement is the creativity behind it in terms of bringing or making voting and the necessity of voting and going to the polls something that has to be done, but in a fun way. And some people will be like, why does it have to be fun? And why does it have to be creative? But I think that in this day and time, anything that you can do to get more people to the polls is what you do. What are your thoughts?
What you do, and I'm going to say this, everything should be fun. And I say that in a way of you should enjoy everything you do. And it should have purpose. So I'm a dancer. I love movement. Stroll to the polls is becoming a movement. And here's why. We think of things in an obligatory way.
Mm-hmm.
But who says you can't have fun at the polls? As a matter of fact, you probably can stroll at the polls while you're waiting in line. And this is whether you're Greek or non-Greek. Slide to the left. Bring your small radio. We're not having homecomings anyway. Have homecoming at the polls.
That's right. That's right.
There's no reason that we cannot celebrate the fact that we are casting our vote and exercising our rights. And voting is a movement. It is a verb. It is an action word. Yes, and so we know as a people, as a culture, we dance and we sing and we celebrate in our storytelling, in our celebrations, in our lamentations, in our sadness. There is an opportunity to celebrate all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can stroll to the poll and be cute and fabulous and have a great time as opposed to sitting there thinking I'll never get home, what a fantastic way to pass the time. I have received so many videos of people who are Greek and non-Greek, literally walking to the polls. Some people just regular walking like, okay, well, I don't know how to dance. This is me walking. I'm strolling to the poll. This is me casting my ballot. People are sending me videos strolling with their sticker like, I got it in, girl. They're sending me videos with their ballot going in and out of the ballot box. It's great. And the energy about it. And so people are like, well, if I'm not Greek, can I stroll to the poll? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And that's one thing. Can you talk about? I'm sorry.
Don't throw a sign. Don't do no sound, calls for the sorority because we don't want that kind of thing.
We don't need that kind of support, Maisha.
Right. Make sure you initiate before you do any of that. But with that being said, I also communicated with the ladies when we were doing this. I said, I need you to understand that you've got to perform this with a passion. Mm-hmm. Because people who don't know what sororities and fraternities are, sometimes this video will be the first time they see you.
Right.
And they will make a decision. A little girl or a grown woman will make a decision that I want to be that. You will inspire people to join us in the work we do as community service organizations, as philanthropic organizations, to continue the work that started in 1908, in 1913, in 1920, and 1922. That's so right. I'm watching people say, wow, how do I become a member?
Mm-hmm,
I've done this. I didn't know. I thought you guys, based upon movies I saw, only did this. I didn't know you engaged like this. This is a new thing.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because a lot of people have misperceptions. People who don't know anything about Black Greekletter organizations often use white Greekletter organizations as the barometer or the lens through which they view the organizations, right? And so they don't really have an idea of what it is and the history behind these organizations, and that so many women in general, and Black women specifically, have come out of these organizations. Whether we talk about Barbara Jordan or Shirley Chisholm or, Mae Jemison. Major, I mean, just you always think about politicians, but people who have
Yeah,
been making history for so
exactly.
long.
Exactly. Serena Butler, who was the founder and a member of Sigma Gamma Rural Sorority, who
Yes,
founded the
yes,
PTA. The
yes,
PTA organization that you have today was founded by an African American woman here in Atlanta,
that's
Selena
right.
Butler. And so a lot of times what we do goes uncelebrated. We are the cross bearers and building builders of many things in this country and across this world, but our work is never mentioned. And so this is a fantastic opportunity to just celebrate the engagement.
Right.
People like Millie Quander, who wrote the letters that went to the women's suffrage movement when they said, hey, we don't want African American women, participating in the women's suffrage movement that took place in 1913, who ushered the way for the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta on Howard's campus to participate in that march. All of these things and their founders were the ones that participated in that march. You see, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated having all these fantastic women like Dr. Barbara King, who was the founder of who may she rest in peace, who passed who was the founder of the Hillside Chapel, a historic church in Atlanta, but not just historic in its foundings and membership, but because she's the first woman to do so.
Yes.
Almost 7 feet tall, statuesque and grand. We have been marching and strolling. This is the first time that we have celebrated that marching and strolling as not an obligation, but as a celebration.
That's right. And I would like to add, I know I'm supposed to be interviewing, but I got to put this in. The PhD in me has to say it. The Black girl has to say it. That celebration or having fun for Black people is an act of revolution, because the times that we live in
revolution
and the terror that we face on a regular and ongoing basis, and the anti-Black and the misogynistic terrorism, racism, sexism, misogyny, all of those words that Black people in general face, and Black women specifically, in terms of this conversation face, the fact that we can even celebrate, or we can find joy in the world, or that we understand that joy comes in the morning, that we understand that and we keep doing that. I think it's just a revolutionary act in and of itself.
It's an act of defiance. It is a symbolism that we will not, you will not be held down.
No.
And that no matter where we are gracious and grateful enough to celebrate, because we know that emergence is coming, because we are relentless and we will not stop.
That is true. So can you talk about a little bit about the history? And I know you talk a lot about this. And full disclosure, we've served on a board together, so we know each other very well. But the history of Black women in Atlanta, and how it isn't like unusual for something, whether we think about Spelman College or all these fantastic organizations that are here and just wonderful game changers that have come out of this space. But can you talk about that and how that ties into this creative movement, or this newer movement, like, women's rights, civil rights movement that is emerging and looks a little different, but is still trying to meet the same goals and objectives?
I think Atlanta is unique in that way. Atlanta is unique in the fact that women don't just participate in movements, we pioneer them. Right? You see the pioneering work of Shirley Franklin, the Atlanta first Black Atlanta mayor, of Coretta Scott King, of Evelyn Lowry. And if anybody ever had an opportunity to be in the presence of Evelyn Lowry, it is like she was so strong and fantastic, and she would take buses of people to Alabama every year, to Marion and to Montgomery and to Birmingham and Pettus Bridge, and to just recapitulate the importance of how our history ties together. You have our Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. You have Zernona Clayton. There is just, and you're dealing with Atlanta, you're dealing with walking legends. You have Serena Sloan Butler, as we talked about before. You have the members of the Atlanta City Council. And, you have women like Marcy Overstreet. You have women like Andrea Boone, the daughter of Joseph Boone, who was a civil rights leader. You have Reverend Orange's wife. And there are all these women who are at the forefront of education and leadership and revolution and civil rights. And, Lottie Watkins, who was insistent on making sure that people were buried decently. And where we filmed her story is on the side of the Goodwill. Miss Watkins used to go to the Goodwill when people could not afford to dress their people or their family members and buy the most pristine things to ensure that people were dressed properly when they were sent home. That every Sunday she cooked dinner and would bring it to the community every Sunday. There are all of these just, we think that being a history maker is about doing something grand. It's about doing what you are called to do and not needing anybody's permission but God to do it. If he gave you, when I tell you I could see this vision so clearly before I created it, you have all these fantastic history people, history makers like my mother, Joyce Shepard, who was one of the first African-American women to serve as an engineer and climb telephone poles for Bell South. One of the first African-American leaders as a woman for CWA, who graduated from Booker T. Washington High School with a D average, and is one of the pioneers on city council for code enforcement, for workforce development. You have all of these fantastic women. And so I challenge you to just be that woman. Her story is always being made. Stroll to the Polls became a movement because people decided to move, because I decided to move. But at the end of the day, me moving by myself is not what made this image amazing. It's all the women that came together to move. So African-American women, white women, Black women, Latino women, move. Don't be afraid to move, to shift the atmosphere. Even if you can't move forward, stand in a place and just move your arms, honey. Move the air around you. Right now, because there's so little movement, that's why people were excited. People have been in their homes for 7 months.
Yes.
So to be able to come out and move and shift an atmosphere in less than a week.
Yeah, and that's what's incredible about it. We have some comments. Annette Phillips, who's one of our loyal watchers, is watching, and she's excited. And she says, "Vote, and God is great." We have Tanisha A.G. Bell, who's actually my cousin, who's a Delta. Some of the most powerful Black women in America are members of Black Greekletter organizations. We have David Youngblood, who's talking about voting, and somebody called us queens up in here. But thank you. Yeah, I think it's David. Thank you. Good afternoon, queens. Good afternoon, king. So we have people who are very excited about these different, about this moment. And I think you're right, because we have been caught kind of like, stuck in the house is doesn't even describe what we've been going through. But because we have been under duress, trying to avoid COVID, because it is so deadly to our communities. And trying to adhere to guidelines or stay away from people who are actively trying to not follow the guidelines. It's just the idea of just having been in so much solitude and being still, which there's value in that too.
There is because I couldn't have done this if I hadn't been still.
That's right.
I would have been doing something else.
That's right. But the movement and the viral video, or the viral sensations, what I like to call it, is definitely speaks to that need to move, that need to shift, and not only our physical bodies, but also to shift, as you say, the landscape, the cultural landscape, the political landscape, and to remind people that we may be down, but we're not out, and that we still have power, and that the vote, is one of the most powerful things that you can ever do. Not using it, not knowing the issues, not participating is what people expect you to do. And they expect for you to stay still and to not do that so that they can keep you where you're supposed to be. So this idea of moving out of these spaces and creating space for yourself as you go to the polls, I just think is really good.
And the idea of moving together. Because people think that Black Greek letter organizations and sororities are always rivalry. We're not.
Oh yeah.
We move together. We have different focuses, but we move together. And so you see this movement starting to take a global perspective. I'm getting emails from Dubai.
Right.
The world are watching. And Nevada and todo mi gente Latina for the shout out on On The View, honey. For you, Anna. And because I'm an extra medium too, girl. So, but I would have never thought I'd be internationally known like Rob Bass, right?
So I was gonna say, can you talk about the global reach of this video and what it means to have Black women, Black women, and as a media scholar, Black women are so maligned and misrepresented and are represented in ways that are just so problematic. I mean, many just so problematic historically and over such a long period of time. And even though we have been pushing back and we have lots of images that challenge those dominant narratives around Black women, just to see this image of this dynamic group of Black women, forget the sororities, right? But these Black women, 20 Black women walking, strolling, dancing together to create this change. Talk about the value of that image in the current landscape.
I think what the word that you use or the term that you use is this dominant narrative. And I want to acknowledge that, because what's most important, and so I'm going to be very transparent, being from Atlanta, being from Stewart Avenue, and if you grew up in Atlanta, you know what that means. The narrative of African American women is so diverse. And I think that I don't have an issue with the narrative as much as perpetuating that this dominant narrative is that of negativity. And this is just me being very transparent about someone who contacted me about, what do you think about the Get Your Booty to the Polls video, right? My response was, I don't have a problem with it. And here's why. Because all kinds of women vote. And that we as a people need to control our own narrative and tell our own stories. And I think that this is what this did. This picture of solidarity, this video, shows that there are many narratives to our existence, right? And that we allow other people to shape our narratives, and we are willing to accept money to do so, right? And this is no slight to any show, but when the narrative is always you and your husband on the television fussing with other women, and people check in every week and pay sponsors to see it, we drive that narrative. I don't watch reality shows because it's not my reality. We have to take responsibility in how we allow people to drive our narrative. So this particular picture is the picture that resounded around the world, that women do exist in solidarity. That women can work quietly together for a month and come together, and in one shot, in less than 1 minute and 57 seconds, change how the world sees us. Because it doesn't take long. We change that in 57 seconds after months and years of these narratives. And people are more excited about the concept of unity. I had someone who was in the organization send me a message say, I have not worn my leia and paraphernalia in 20 years. I have dug out my hat, honey, and I'm on my way to vote.
Very good.
So the narrative, like I said, when I get these messages from Dubai or these messages from England, I mean, I just would have never thought. But that is the power of social media.
Yes.
So you make sure you send the pictures of you all standing in line to vote, of you casting your vote, because I need you to know America's not just watching, and your elected officials are not just watching. The world is watching. Black women, set your narrative. Show them who you are, and your individual and collective who you are, whether or not you're in Atlanta, Georgia, or Willacoochee, Georgia, matters.
That's right. That's right. So let me just say real quick, for people who are watching, if you have questions, you should start sending them, because we're on the tail end of the interview, and we would like to get any questions that you have. I think I'm a great interviewer, but I would love to have Maisha answer some of your questions as well. But I'll give you another one. In terms of mobilizing, do you have any idea of how many people have watched the stream, the video? Like, how many people are you tracking, the number of people who are saying that they're voting?
Yeah, I can't track totally. Here's why. Because when people rip a video from Instagram, you're tracking on theirs now.
Right.
So on Facebook for the Gems of Georgia post where we posted the video, it's got 29,000 views and 971 shares. Okay. For Instagram, Watch the Yardage reposted it. They have thousands of views. Cool Sorors has reposted. They have thousands of views. You have Roland Martin that's reposted. You have Anna Navarro that's reposted. This is on Twitter as well. You have Kerry Washington that's reposted. So this thing is out here just spinning. And so to try to track it, I don't know. I know that it's gone viral. For lack of a better term, it's probably kind of going pandemic viral. But I would anticipate by now we've probably had about 500,000 people minimally see this.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. Tanisha says it's also powerful and empowering optic to see Black women physically leading the call to mobilize voters. And I'm sure that was one of your so let's go back real quick. Why did you do it? Like, I mean, a lot of people have ideas, and you've actually been talking about strolling to the polls because you do have what's the name of your company again? Gems of Georgia Dance?
Gems of Georgia Dance.
Okay.
And you can find Hamilton Road. Yeah.
You can find them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
Right.
Okay. My daughter took a class there and it was fabulous. I would highly recommend. I know we're not doing commercials in the middle of the interview, but just had to say that out loud. And a lot of people watched her little dance recital and she was just so cute. But anyway, and I love the work that you do with Black people in general, with everybody, but Black people in general, Black girls specifically. I just love it. But what made you pull the trigger? Because like you talked about strolling to the polls, you had your stroll classes. As a matter of fact, I talked to my friend. I was like, you know what, we should start a stroll class. That'd be a good way to get into shape. And then I saw that you had one. I said, never mind, just go take it here. And I think that was like a couple of years ago. But like, what made you like pull the trigger on making this video and like investing your own money in it? Because you don't get any money back from posting a video.
No, you don't.
More than likely, right? What made you do that? Like, what was it where you said, I got to do this?
Can I be very transparent?
Yes.
So this last season for me, particularly during COVID, has been a season of stillness. And what I have seen is that the air is very firm because nothing's moving through it. So when you speak something now, it happens. That's why it's so important that we speak what we want and move through this atmosphere in a way, because when I say things now, it just kind of happens. And I was like, that never happened before. But to be very transparent with you, I was obedient. I saw it like Nsenga, I could touch it. When I tell you I could touch it and I know that sounds so crazy. But like when I was standing at the stadium looking down the ramp, I could see them, even though I didn't really know who all of them were. I could just see it. So the answer is what made me pull the trigger was obedience. Okay. Obedience to God's vision. I just simply did the ludicrous move with God. And he said, when I move, you move. And I was like, just like that. Just like that.
Oh my God, this is why I love you.
Listen, but I am a pioneer by nature, which is why I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, even though I'm not speaking on behalf of the sorority.
Neither of us. Speaking on behalf of the sorority. We would like to keep our pearls. Thank you.
Just God. So, but as a pioneer, I'm a pioneering spirit. I'm the person who jumps. And people are like, well, maybe we should look at that. Like, we ain't got time for that. Come on, let's go. We gotta do this now. There are people who are very meticulous, like, okay, well, what we're going to do. But this for me was an exercising of planning because I had to engage other people. And I do numbers of productions. I do the Miss Black and Gold pageant for Zeta Mu chapter at Georgia State University, and everybody comes. This is not my first time going viral. It's just my first time going viral for me.
Right.
I just did what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there is a saying by Benjamin Elijah Mays that everyone is called to do something special. And if they don't do it, it will never be done. And my empowering people to move is all I could do. This became a movement, like I said, because I was willing to be obedient when something said, Maisha, when spirit said move.
That's right.
So spirit is telling you to move on something, move on it. And Nsenga, I've watched you, you know, pursue your dreams and do your passion. And if it's your passion and your gift and your talent and God gave it to you, just move. He'll make sure all the rest happens. And if you fail, that's okay, because that failure doesn't belong to you, because sometimes that failure is your next ratchet to success. I failed in so many things, but I am never scared to move. So just move. So
now,
yeah, I would like to say I'm more dynamic, but I'm not. I was just obedient.
Okay, I love it. So, you're activist, and Annette Phillips says that she is a general princess fighting for justice. Yes, Miss Annette, you are. Yes, fighting for justice. I hear that. What is your activist? Because you know we have very similar upbringings in terms of you know, African-centered education and Black nationalism and things of that nature, African names, things of that nature. But where did you get that? Where did you get your activism from? Like, you know, I kind of have an idea, but I would like for you to discuss it. Like, you didn't wake up like this morning. Like, how did that come about? Yeah.
I say all the time, I'm a lion. I was born of lions. So I don't know how to be anything else but a lion. I run in the savannah, and I lay in tall grass, and I pounce on things, and I eat raw meat, and I'm a lion. I'm strong, and being a lioness is just what I was. My mother was a lioness. My mother came from Valley, Alabama. Moved here to Atlanta. Like I said, graduated from Washington High School with a D average. Knew she would never go to college. My mother said, I always knew I was not college material. But I watched my mother as a child. My mother was introduced to my father, Reverend William Land, Bill Land. He was a United Church of Christ pastor of Sankofa Church in in Cincinnati, Ohio. And anybody knows anything about Sankofa Church knows it's a revolutionary church. My father was the person in charge of social justice and racial reform for the United Church of Christ, and was fired 26 times. 26. Because, baby, you know, these people not just gonna tell me how to handle my people. My father was the chair of Republicans for Obama. My father was a Republican. He's the chair of the campaign for Republicans for Obama. So you walk in, he's got his Republicans for Obama thing up. Obama's with him with Michelle. You know, it's crazy. But just never saw a fight he didn't like. Was the establisher of the Harambe House with Joseph Boone, Reverend Joseph Boone, the late. They were best friends who got men and women off of heroin here in the 70s and 80s in Atlanta. My mother was, like I said, was introduced to my father by Joseph Boone. That's how I got here. Reverend Boone introduced my mother and my father because she was being victimized as a worker at Zales and discriminated against. And they were leading pickets, Reverend Boone, my father, and Hosea Williams, against white-owned companies. And at that time, she was introduced to the first concept of what apartheid was. Because remember, she's just a small country girl who lives in Atlanta, right? Who grew up on Sales Avenue. So through that, she became involved in the movement of civil rights, and where she met, you know, many of the civil rights leaders of today. You know, my father was significantly older than my mother. And my father was one of the organizers for Bloody Sunday. My father, and you know, you talk about these people who were up front, but there are a lot of people who were behind the scenes who made this shift for people, who organized, right? So I learned to organize through my mother and my father. I watched my mother look out the window because our house faced face Stewart Avenue. And I used to see prostitutes stand in front of my house. I walked over condoms to my elementary school, which was next door, every day. And my mother said, I'm going to change this for you. And my mother kept her word, because Metropolitan Parkway is why it's called Metropolitan Parkway today. My mother changed that. Mm-hmm. There are no prostitutes that walk up and down Stewart Avenue or Metropolitan Parkway anymore. My mother was one of the people with Derek Bozeman to champion closing Club Nicky's. Mm-hmm. So, and now she's an Atlanta City Council person who didn't even want to run for Atlanta City Council, but she was a public servant. And I said, Mother, what person would be better than you to change the dynamics? And you see slowly this change. But I do want to say that in the history of Atlanta, you start to see this change now. And I'm loving what young people are doing. But I do want to say this as they watch Stroll to the Polls and they watch all of this. I need you to know that the change that has happened over years. It is not a microwave situation. It's a pilot situation. This is a long-term cook. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to either run the whole race or know when to pass the baton to the next runner.
That's right. That's right. So I want you to speak more about that, like younger people, because a lot of people say that young folks are disconnected and not engaged in today's politics. I know you work with young people. I work with young people. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with that? And do you think that Stroll to the Polls will remedy some of that, or?
Stroll to the Polls has remedied some of that. I just received the Stroll to the Polls video from undergraduate chapters in my mailbox yesterday.
Oh, fantastic.
So here, sometimes I think the gap is between, Nsenga, the gap is with us. And when I say with us, I'm talking about the generation of 30 to 50. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The people of the civil rights movement were engaged. They got it. The younger people are looking to our example, but we are very complacent and very commercial.
Mm-hmm. Speak on it.
And then for some reason, you want our young people to be able to carry this mantra of a generation before them that they never saw, that only we saw, but we didn't pass on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'm just putting it where it is. It's our fault, because when we had the opportunity to get our degrees and go to our HBCUs and our PWIs and make it out, we made it out, but we never came back. We didn't come back and make it better. I still stay in the same community that I left. When I went to school, I came back. I'm still in zone 3, fighting for zone 3. When you make it, it's not about making it out, it's about making it better. So the issue that you have with these young people is not that they're disconnected. They don't understand how to cook on a stove.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
They don't understand that. You have to remember that this generation, we know what it is to not have a computer.
That's right.
We know what it is to not have a mobile phone and have to stop at the payphone and have a pocket full of quarters. Mm-hmm. And have to dial. And then miss a number and have to start over. Because they are so used to immediate changes and immediate access. Remember when you had to go to the library to get information and you had to look things up on a decimal card and then pull the book and then go to the shelf to get the information and realize the book wasn't there when you got there? Mm-hmm. So they don't have that. Everything they have is at their fingertips. So they expect change to be at their fingertips, but that's not how change works. Change is incremental. And I'm going to tell you something, young people, you better get out here and vote. Let me tell you why. If you want elected officials to do what you want them to do, they got to look like you and be like you. They got to be 26. If you want us to think like you, they got to be you.
That's right.
Because let me tell you about old people. We'll wait you out. Once you get, because what you are is smart, but you're distracted. You're on to the next thing. And we know that. You've got to be constant. You've got to be like a pilot light that is always burning, even if the flame is not in the eye. You got to have, what y'all want to do is just push the button and then be like, oh, social reform now, defund the police now, such and such and such now. But you can't shift it that way. You have to be a part of the system to shift it. You got to know the ins and outs to shift it. And that's the point. They're not disconnected. They don't understand the long-term game. But guess what? As young people, they don't have to. That's the beauty of being young.
Right.
The beauty of being young is to have the flame.
Right.
But having the flame and knowing how to use the flame is not the same thing, because you can burn down everything and not have anything left.
And to your point, Gen X hasn't taught that generation the way that we should have. We've relied on organizations and things of that nature. But in terms of that individual, independent family within the family unit, you know, kind of like social change is a value, we have not passed that down. We have not.
That is the so they say my vote doesn't count because they think if I cast it immediately, that's what's supposed to happen. But it's not just about that. It's about the perpetual accountability. You have to vote in your local elections, because your local elections are the people who you elect, are the people who fundraise for the larger people at the top. So you got to get these local people first. Right? That your electoral college is comprised of people who are elected on the local and state level.
That's right.
So if you only vote in your presidential election, then you don't have nobody to cast your electoral ballot like it needs to be casted, because all the low people on the lower level, you didn't engage and choose. So you don't have a voice because you didn't choose them.
That's right. That's right.
So that's on us. And so I'm trying to make sure that y'all understand that young people, and I know y'all don't even look at Facebook, but that's okay because I'm gonna put it on my Instagram anyway. So you have to understand, slow and steady wins the race in politics. You gotta hold the road, because they'll wait you out until you're tired. And if you running full speed at 100 miles, at a 100-yard dash, but you can't run the 400, they'll wait for you at the 300-yard line because they know you're not gonna make it.
That's right.
And that's real talk for real people. You heard it here first for free.
Well, Maisha, this has been fantastic. Tell me what's next. So you said there's going to be a longer version of Stroll with the Polls, and we want to leave with the video. So we're going to end this with the video. But tell me, like, what's next for the Stroll to the Polls movement? Can I take classes at Gems of Georgia Dance Studio? Can I do that? Like, give me the scoop.
So in COVID-19, our next class will be outside. It will be located at the Atlanta Music Project on October the 24th. There will be 2 classes for Stroll to the Polls. You can get your body to the polls, baby. So the first one is at 10:30, and the second one is at 10:30 and 1 o'clock. Okay, and you're going to want to go to the Eventbrite page for Gems of Georgia. We have not launched it yet, but have your trigger fingers ready. The page and the link will go up today on Facebook and Instagram. So make sure you get your tickets. Make sure you buy your Stroll to the Polls shirt. And that's super important. And we want to make sure that you stay engaged, empowered, and moving. Share it with a friend. Also go to the Stroll to the Polls movement on Facebook and post your picture of you strolling to the polls or your video of you strolling to the polls. I can't wait to see you at the polls, and I can't wait to see you after November 3rd, baby. Let's do it.
And this America global community, people watching from everywhere. We got people from Cincinnati here. We got people just coming in from all over London, England. This is Maisha Land, the creative force behind Stroll to the Polls, a movement. And we have a viral video, we have a viral photo, and a longer video is going to be released this week. So we are strolling to the poll with you. Get out and vote. Wear your masks.
Please wear your mask. Wear too.
That's right. Everything that Maisha said at the top of the show, right? Turn in your ballots. Make sure it's an official ballot. If it's an absentee ballot or official location, every city has an official elections office. When in doubt, go there. Every city,
go there.
County, state has an official elections office. When in doubt, go there. And Ms. Phillips, Ms. Annette is from New York City. She's in New York City. People are just from all over this place coming to see you and to hear from you, Maisha. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask our producer who's off screen if we're ready for our video, and he's going to take us out. Are you ready?
Woke up feeling like I just might run for president. Even if there ain't no precedent. Switching up the messaging. I'm about